DDSN works with providers across South Carolina to ensure that individuals with brain injuries have access to services they need. We spoke to Luke Gribick, a brain injury survivor, and his mother Carol. This is their story.
Luke was 12 years old when he had a sudden cardiac arrest when he was in the shower. He stayed home from school that day and wasn't feeling well, so I said, go ahead, go take a shower. And I heard him clunking around in the bathroom. I was saying, what's going on? And I went to investigate, and he said, Mom, I'm afraid I'm dying. And said, come on, let's go lay down. I thought maybe he got dizzy. The shower was too hot or whatever. And I let him lay down for a little bit, and I noticed he stopped breathing. And so my older son was home. I said, call 911. We called paramedics, and we did CPR in the meantime. They said that his heart was, he was in what they call ventricular fibrillation, where heart is quivering, not getting any blood to his brain. And despite he was down for the hour, it led to his brain injury. He was transferred over to the pediatric emergency room over at Memorial, or Prisma Health now as they call it. And he was in Peds ICU, and he was in pretty bad shape. Intubated, that means they had a tube down his throat, his machine was breathing for him, he had all kind of tubes coming out here and there, and it was that minute by minute, hour by hour, we were waiting and to see what was going on. He eventually got the tube out, and they transferred him to a step-down unit, and we waited to go to Charleston. That's where we were going to be flown off to. He had to let his heart rest for 3 weeks before he can go on Charleston and be evaluated and see what's going on. He flown to Charleston, and they did all kind of tests, and they figured it was just a bad arrhythmia, which is kind of rare in children, and they went ahead and put a pacemaker in and then brought him back to Greenville, for which then he went to Rogers C. Peace rehab for 3 months. And for there, he learned to try to walk. He had a feeding tube. He didn't talk for 5 months, which was the worst part. And he did a lot of outpatient therapy, inpatient therapy. We're thankful for the group over at Rogers C. Peace and getting him there. He did end up talking at the end of 5 months, and he does still have problems right now. I mean, understanding him, so, speech is one of the things that he battles with.
Luke has the ability to use a walker, but still faces some challenges with his speech.
Before, he had no problem speaking, and I think I have a hard time sometimes hearing what he's trying to say, and he has to repeat it a lot because I wear hearing aids too, and he needs to speak a clearer, and sometimes when he thinks about it, and according to his therapist, he's got to go low and slow and take deep breaths and follow that format, which is just easy just to blurt something out. He's got to change his whole way of speaking. You get frustrated? Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
He still has problems speaking, and he does see a speech therapist because his soft palate doesn't connect, and so that's why sometimes it's a little bit, he's got that nasally kind of sound to his voice. He just has to take his time when he speaks.
Carol talked about the everyday struggles they have to keep in mind due to Luke's disability.
Yeah, we have modifications in the house, and you always have to look like, where am I going to park the car? How are we going to get into this building? Somebody invites you over to their house. Well, how do you get in your house? You got a lot of steps. You always have to think about, how am I going to get somebody in there with a walker? Where's the bathrooms? What kind of bathroom there is? If you go to a restaurant, I always look and see, what kind of bathroom it is. Does it have grab bars as it is? Because I'd be surprised. A lot of places don't have it, you know what I'm saying? So, and so those are challenges that you always look for. You just don't jump in the car and go. I mean, you got to put the walker, if we rent a car, you got to make sure the walker can fit in a rent a car, wherever you go, wherever you go out to eat. Can you get into that building? Is it a one-stall bathroom? Is it a bath? Oh, I can remember when he was in a wheelchair, and we would take him to the mall, And I remember having to take him to the ladies' room because I just couldn't push him in a wheelchair and say, okay, go in the men's room and go to the bathroom. And one lady said, this is a ladies' room. And I said, yeah. And of course, the handicap bathroom is the last stall in the whole row of stalls. So I've taken him to many ladies' rooms.
Carol talked about some of the misconceptions people have about those who have experienced brain injuries.
I think so. I think there's a lot of times you have to explain it. Well, I'm glad they have the trip card that people can carry that say I have a brain injury, and if you got there was somebody in our support group that got stopped last year, and he had a tail light out, and a policeman stopped him, and because he talked differently and he slurred his speech, and they said, you been drinking? What's going on? And he said, no, I have a brain injury, and he was like, yeah, and then he brought out his card and it said I have some difference. So I think that makes a difference. I think making other police departments aware of brain injuries is very important too.
Carol spoke about what people need to know about brain injuries.
Yeah, I just think it's just people need to be aware that people always ask me, are they going to brain injury people when are they going to get back to where they were before? Are they going to be like they were before? How long is that going to be? Number one, there's no time frame on it. Every day is a challenge. You're learning new things every day. And number two, no, you're not going to go back. And I always say, are you ever the same when you go through something? If you tripped and fell right now over one of these things, will you ever be the same? No, because the next time you can walk over those things, you'll be careful. So when you experience something, you'll never go back to where you were before. You'll always be more cautious, or if you were in a car accident or whatever. So when people say, well, when will they be normal? Who's normal? What is
normal?
What is normal? Yeah. Is this our norm right now? Yes, it is. And we're moving forward and learning every day.
Carol talked about some home modifications DDSN provided, as well as some services and supports they receive that make their lives easier.
Yeah, we had the bathroom remodeled, which was really a blessing. And then we've had a ramp put on the side of the house. We've had the wheelchair was provided for, and Haskey coming to the drop-in center is very important. It's very important to that. So I'm very thankful for that. I know our case manager asks if there's anything that we need, and we're good right now. But if we ever needed, like I said, where the bathroom is something, the handicap ramp is something, the wheelchair, any equipment, that's very important to have. When he was having other issues, like when he was tube fed and when he needed some other personal health items, that was all provided for, and that was a blessing.
Carol had some advice for parents who may have a child going through a similar circumstance.
Get involved in the support group as soon as you can. A lot of times, somebody says, how do you drive through a snowstorm? You follow the tracks in front of you. And that's what you need to do, is get in those tracks and follow somebody else. You don't realize what you're going through until you find somebody else. Oh yeah, they've gone through this. Oh, what did you do? And it's very helpful that way. We're involved in also going to the Brain Injury Conference, which is every year. That is something that, we're a little state and we're like family. You get to see people from Charleston and from Florence and stuff, and we kind of meet together once a year, and even if you can't afford it, there's funding out there, so that should not be an issue.
Carol spoke about what she has learned because of Luke's injury.
I think it taught me that things can change in a second. I think we learned that from a lot of stuff, even things that are happening in the world nowadays. You can be walking down this way and then all of a sudden things happen in a second.
Finally, Luke had words of advice to those who have experienced a brain injury.
Stick to it. Basically, stick to it, and that's all you can do.